Hey guys, Patrick Blunt with Green Howe Handmade Ironworks here, and today we are going to start working on this project here, which is a archway or an overthrow. I am building this for the cemetery at the Church of the Purification in Sharon, Georgia. I did all of the fencing for the cemetery out there, and then I did the gates for the cemetery out there. This is the last piece of the puzzle out there, is doing this archway or this overthrow that will go between the brick pillars and go over the gates that go into the cemetery. Yesterday I did all of my scroll work. These scrolls are made from 1-inch solid bar, and so here is this is actually the brick, going to be the brick pillar. My arch is going this way. Today we are working on, obviously, we've got our scroll here, and then this bar just stayed straight, and the same thing with that one, and that stayed straight. These bars have to arc or curve, and they're going to meet right here. Why did I make this in two pieces where I'm going to have a butt weld right in the middle of it? Well, if I had made this in one piece, this piece of 1-inch bar would have been over 10 feet long, and that's just a lot of, it's a huge bar, a lot of metal to have to deal with when you're doing projects by yourself. And as y'all know, I primarily work alone. I'm a one-man shop, and I like it that way. We are going to start trying to get these to bend so that I can seam them in the middle. This has to be a very smooth, very easy, slightly curved bend that goes all the way up. It's got to be like that. It can't be kinky at all. So how do you do that? Well, you got to go get jiggy with it. I mean, I guess you could heat and bend this very slowly, matching it to the drawing. Definitely you can do it that way. It's very time consuming. You got to do each one individually, matching it to the drawing and then matching them to each other to make sure everything's staying the same. I tend to try to do it with a jig. So what I'm going to do is, if you have a big metal layout table like this one, guess what? You can build a lot of jigs directly on your table, and you can weld them directly to this table. And then when you get done with them, you grind the welds off and bust them off your table and refinish where those welds were, and nobody ever even knows. I have had crap welded all over this table before. So what I have done here is I have marked right here. This is where my jig, my curve needs to start in this bar. And then I went up here and I marked right here. This is the last place that curve or that jig is going to touch this bar. Now, I'm going to measure in between this point to this point along this bottom line right here. This right here, if you don't have a traveler or a rolly ruler, you need to get one. Sometimes you can find some real nice ones that are made out of metal. This is a plastic one. I think it was made for sewing or something. I found it on Amazon. I've used it a bunch. It's actually taped back together. It works really well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my zero. Every time this thing goes back around to zero, I'm going to foot. I'm going to put my zero right on that mark. We're going to go start rolling along that line. We got 1 foot, 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet. Now I'm going to start counting inches. 4 feet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and a quarter. 4 feet, 7 inches, 1/4. That's what I need. So now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go cut a piece of bar that is 4 feet, 7 1/4 inches. I'll probably cut this just out of 1/4 inch by either 1 or 1 1/2, whatever I've got on the rack up there. going to then make this bend or this curve in that 1/4 inch bar and be sure that it sets right on here perfectly. I'll then weld that to my table right along that curve, and then I can weld some stops, just any little bar you got on the back side of these bars. Then we'll probably use the sword forge for this. I could, heat 6 inches at a time in the cold forge and bend it. I certainly could do that. Y'all know I don't use that sword forge very often because it's very expensive to run. I'll probably go through, $40 in gas just heating these bars. I've only got 4 of these to do, but I'll use a lot of fuel up just heating these bars. But I can heat the entire section of that bar, and I can probably bend these in one heat, which is going to save me a ton of time. So there, the money is going to save me a lot of time, which will get me to a paycheck quicker. So you kind of got to make those decisions. But we'll weld a stop here. We'll weld a stop here. I can then clamp those on, heat these bars, and bend those to that curve. Should be pretty easy, and then I'll trim my ends, and I can butt weld those together, and I'll have one whole arc. These are getting a bracket in the middle too, more of a decorative bracket, but it will add some structure to it. So we'll build that bracket and put those on. But I really want to just get these 2 arcs put together today. So that's where we're at, and that's what we're going to do. Alright guys, so I've got our 4 feet 7 1/4 inch piece of metal here. This is a piece of 1/4 inch by 1.5 inch. This is what we are going to make our jig out of. So we've got to bend this piece first. This piece has to be exactly what we want these to come out as. We are bending the inside radius here, not the outside, okay? So you could bend this cold probably in the vise with the fork and dog and go easy and work your way along there, bending and unbending and bending. Again, time consuming. You could do that though. You could bend it hot if you wanted to. I don't normally bend stuff like this hot. I try to work cold as much as I can. I am going to opt to use this ring roller. I've got this ring roller that's on a stand. They're made so you can bolt them down. I've never bolted mine down because I tend to move it all over the place. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to roll this through there and slowly try to build up to that. If I go too far, it's easy. I can flex it back and take some out. But this should give me a very smooth curve. So, pretty simple machine to use. This goes in here. We've got a little handle here that goes in a jack underneath, and then those bottom rollers jack up. We're just going to do it a little bit at a time. Back and forth, and then I'm going to start checking into my drawing as I think I'm getting close. You can't roll the whole thing in there. You've got about a 4-inch space on the ends that ain't going to get rolled, which is fine. We can make those adjustments on those ends if we have to. Roll it back. Maybe I can scoot this back. There you go. Now, a little goes a long ways with this. You can see it's already starting to get pretty curved here. So I'm going to probably pump it out of here and check where we're at before I go too far. And when you know, I already went too far. So deal with. and device. So now I'm going to go to the fork and dog and device and just tweak it just a little bit. As you can see how that machine there, just 2 passes through and I'm pretty much almost there. So don't go too far. We're going to tweak it all, get it all set up, and then we'll be ready to start bending these big bars. Alright guys, so there we go. We've got it all set up. We've got our arc welded in place. I went ahead and added some posts just for some structure. Our stops are welded in on both sides. And I went ahead and welded up some nice big bending forks because I've broken a lot of mine and I just didn't have any on hand big enough to be able to do this easily. So I just went ahead and did that. One thing that I'm going to have to be very sure of when I put these in this jig and clamp these in before I start doing my bend is that this scroll is just touching the top of my brick. I've got to be very, very careful about that. I'm wondering if I might want to clamp in a stop right here that I could then push that to, and I probably will do that. I'm not going to weld that in place. I can just clamp it because it's right here on the edge of my table. And then up here, I was noticing this bend has to start so close to the scroll. I'm probably not going to be able to get it into the sword forge that close. So this first bend, at least, I'm going to have to do in the coal forge because I can heat back here and then hold this with the fork and bend this, or clamp it there and bend this where it's supposed to go. And again, I've got to be very certain that I'm right on the edge of touching my cross there, and I may clamp in. I've got a big long clamp. I can clamp in a stop for that as well. So I'm going to get that set up, and yeah, and then I'll probably get the sword forge going because I can bend these totally in the sword forge and get the coal forge going so I can bend this, do this first bend here, and then stick the rest into the sword forge. Alright guys, so we got the coal forge going. I'm going to do these first bends here, but I wanted to show y'all this. When you're doing these bends, go ahead and stick this in, and I'm going to mark on here where I need my heat. Otherwise, I might get my heat off, and when I get it out and come over here, the heat's not in the right place and it won't bend correctly, and I've wasted time and fuel. So I want it to be heated from just right behind where this jig comes in contact here and I can only heat about 6 to 8 inches in one heat over there. Actually, I can do longer heats. I've gotten up to a foot, but I'm going to try to heat back to about right here. If I can heat that and go ahead and do that first bend, I can get the rest of it in the big sword forge, and we can do all that bend at one time. So we got the first heat here. Hopefully we got long enough heat to be able to bend this. So we got to set it in there. Should be able to get our first bend in. about that particular bend. I really like it. There, that's actually looking a little bit better. Re-weld that. That's pretty darn good right there. So that's our first bend. I should be able to get the rest of this in the sword forge. Retight that weld on there, and the rest of this bend should be a little bit easier. That's the most difficult of the bends in these. I did the first one already. I did this one, so now I'm ready to light that sword forge and try to run through the rest of these bends here. Alright guys, so I think I've got a fairly even heat over there in the sword forge, so I'm going to go ahead and pull the first piece, drop it in, clamp it in, see if we can't get it to bend. Hopefully we got an even heat on it. One thing I don't like about this sword forge is it tends to be, while it's all heated, it's kind of a spotty heat. You'll have spots that are hotter than the others, so it kind of can make things finagle and things a little bit difficult. But I'll be right back with a super hot bar. Let's see if we can get it in. I did pop a weld. I popped a couple of welds as that bar right there gets hot and moves. Those welds are popping because that bar is starting to stretch because of the heat. But that looks really nice right there. Alright guys, there my two top bends are. Right there, and we got our two other bends there. Oh, those are the top ones. Those go on top. Those are my bottom ones that go down here, right there. So now it's time to bust the jig off of there because I don't need it anymore. Grind down my little welds, get my drawing back, and we can push forward with building this. Alright guys, so now you can see we knocked off the jig that we built on here. We ground all those welds down. I spruced my drawing back up, and now I'm back to square one where I just have the drawing on the table. Now I can take the pieces that we just made and start laying them out on the drawing and seeing where we need to make cuts so that we can butt these things, butt weld these pieces together so they're square and right. So our seam is right here. And then we've got all our other pieces that we can lay on here. As we are going to be making these cuts, we got this one, y'all see that, y'all can. Got that guy there, build the jigs and then build these pieces and then get rid of those tools, kind of one-time use tools. That jig was, and then it's in the scrap bin now. I'll probably use it for something else eventually, maybe. You know, cut it up and use it for other stuff. But now we've got it all laid out. We can start to make these cuts. Quick note before I let you go, though. When you make these cuts to butt weld these together, cut one or the other first, and then when you lay this on top to see where you're going to cut, be sure you block this end up with 1-inch bar, like that right there, and make your mark there. Otherwise, that bar is going to be sitting on there kind of honky tonk, and when you make your cut, it could be off a little bit. It's happened to me before. So just be sure that you block it up so that this is all in the same plane. So when you make that mark, you're making it on the same plane, and then when you make that cut, it'll just drop down in there. Okay, that's as far as I'm going to take you guys with this project right now. Maybe I'll bring y'all back in on it at some point, but I just wanted to make a video about how to be able to use these drawings to be able to make a jig that sits directly on your drawing that you can then use to make the parts, and then you can scrap that jig and just go back to your drawing, and you're good to go. You know, you're right where you want to be. So anyways, I hope that helps you guys out. Please go see my Instagram feed at Greenhow Handmade. When you're on there, you can go back through my feed. You'll be able to see the fencing that we did for the cemetery and the gates that we did for the cemetery. And this is the last part of that. So follow me on Instagram. I put a lot of stuff there. Please follow me here on YouTube. And thank you for watching. And thank you.